There we are. So welcome everybody. This is SIG API Machinery for Kubernetes open source bi-weekly meeting. Today is March 22nd, 2023. We have a nice agenda and we are going to get to it. Let's begin with David.
Thanks. So I wanted to talk about the storage version hash. It's something we haven't talked about in a very long time. This is different than the storage version API. The storage version hash was a first attempt that we added to our standard resource discovery to try to have something to key an automated storage version migration off of. Over time, we found it just didn't work well because we had to understand the state of all the API servers, and there's no guarantee that a client is going to be able to make those connections and do that. I think the storage version is a much better place to continue from, and got some traction from wow, names are escaping me. Was it was Mo and was it Han?
It was Mo and Tim Auclair.
Tim Auclair.
Yeah.
They were digging into it, and those
and Andrew Sycam.
That's who it was, Andrew. So I'm proposing that we deprecate the storage version hash field in the old discovery document and plan for its removal in another 3 releases.
That sounds good to me. I don't think anybody can be making use of it at the moment, since you can't reliably connect to a particular API server or even know how many there are.
Yeah, that's my thought. I want to bring it up here also because I know Jordan never wanted to remove another GA API, and technically this one was beta, but there was no way to really know that it was beta because we've been returning it by default to users. I agree that I don't think there's a reliable way to use it, but I figured I would be sure it wasn't going to give Jordan heartburn. He looks thrilled. That looks like an on your head be it look to me. I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm definitely going to deprecate it then, or we'll definitely deprecate it.
At least marking it, documenting it, that seems like a really good first step. To my knowledge, there's only one consumer, and it's our storage migrator thing that has never like progressed to supported state. Yeah.
Okay.
At least documenting, announcing, doing a sweep to find usage and saying, hey, this probably isn't working the way you think it's working. Are you sure you want to be doing this? It seems like a good first step. If that sweep turns up as little use as we expect, then yeah, letting it expire is probably fine.
Okay, great.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else has an opinion on this? No. Okay. So like there is an action item for you, David. You're going to mark it deprecate right away. Are you going to wait until somebody has a different opinion, or how?
I will go ahead and mark it deprecated. I think that's fairly non-controversial. I will probably just snooze a reminder to come back, I don't know, somewhere during the summer and do
Is that for
overall
is that for 128, or are you going to try and pretend that it happened in 127?
No, 128.
Okay,
I found this. I see no reason to rush it unless I happened to come across it. I was looking at it going, oh, I wish I didn't have that to deal with. And wanted to remove it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Very good. Should we move to the next one? Daniel.
Sure. The next 2 items are mostly just informing everybody that I wrote up caps for things that we talked about over the last 2 meetings. I'm trying and failing to get over a cold, so I'm not firing on all cylinders. So I don't know how much discussion we can really have, especially since I don't know how many people read these. But for this cap in particular, I would appreciate if people would comment on the stories. And I tried to call out a few different feature flags and how they would work with the system. So if you could point out ones that I missed, or like the classes of feature flags that I missed, that'd be great. Especially David brought up an auth one that I could not find that feature flags. Is that auth setting like now GA and always on? I
There
couldn't
was
find it.
one that was. I'm also worried about the kubelet settings where you make a change to enable, say, swap on a kubelet. Then you have a flag to enable swap on a kubelet, and then you try to disable the feature gate. And what should the kubelet do? So
Yeah. Well, if you read the KEP now, I think that concern is addressed.
Okay.
Basically, I say like some flags aren't a good match for central enablement, and for those flags, we won't use that system.
Okay. Yep.
I'm interested. Okay, I'm interested in cheating to get some useful stuff on here.
Okay. There will be follow-up questions, I think, about like trying to separate the two in some reasonable way.
Yeah, even having a coherent way to describe that, like things that we expect to be global and things that we actually want to be able to roll out gradually to a cluster. So like swap support on nodes maybe seems like a thing we would want to do per node pool or gradually. Whereas
yeah, I left canarying for like a follow-up at the moment. I can't boil the ocean, so seems like canarying is a follow-on activity once you have something that could be theoretically centralized. So I haven't described how that would work yet.
Okay, you have several KEPs open. A lot of them are really cool. You have this one. I see there's another one on the list for unknown version interoperability proxy. That looks interesting. I know you have one for,
and I have the fine grain auth
Z to unstick.
Yeah, it seems like I like writing KEPs, but not finishing them, huh?
Well, my question for you is if I were going to focus on, let's say 2 for review for potential implementation of 128, which 2 would they be?
Probably the 2 here, the finishing the feature flags and the proxy one. I think it's my turn on the fine grain auth one. Tim has left feedback. I will. I definitely owe a pass on that one. So I don't know if I can make a promise or not, but
okay. Thanks.
And I'll just go on to the second one, which is the thing that we talked about last week. I wrote something up. There's a few open questions, and it is not detailed at all yet. So if you go there and be disappointed, I warned you. But in particular, we're looking for an idea for like, do we need a public key or a cert or a CA cert or something so that API servers can identify each other? And if so, where do we put that? So if anyone has ideas on that, if you could leave a comment, that would be great. And the other thing Han and I were debating is, given that resources can be added and removed, do we want to merge all possible resources into the discovery information? Or do we want to show only the discovery from like one version of API server? Say either, and if so, do we want to use the new one or the destination version if that happens to be a downgrade?
Destination
or
version.
Or the alternative is to hide resources that not all API servers can serve, which I think Tim left in a comment there. I currently think that anything that isn't showing all possible resources will result in namespace deletion bugs, which means
Yeah.
that we have to merge things, which isn't actually as bad as it sounds. I think we can just read the storage version API and construct the discovery information from that instead of having to do something complicated like dial each API server or something like that. And today we're currently in beta. The aggregated discovery stuff is in beta, and that is reading the local. I think that sends requests to the local API server. So if we're reading the storage version API versus sending discovery requests to the local API server, I don't think that's like more work for the machine. It's just different work.
Does this explore the possibility of having discovery show all possible resources, but have individual API servers refuse to allow create unless all API servers allow creating? Or is the proxy just a way to avoid that?
I think that is.
Proxy would allow you to avoid that situation, I think.
Okay.
Because you would just route the traffic.
That could be something that we could consider in addition, though. I didn't think about that at all. Yeah, so I don't know. Give this it's real short right now, so give it a read and see if there's a alternative. There's a lot of to-dos.
So the thing that I was suggesting that Daniel does not like is in order to make discovery consistent, I was suggesting that we just route discovery to the destination version. And while we would still orphan objects, as Daniel pointed out, this is already an issue.
Yeah, the orphaning case, by the way, it happens if you're deleting a namespace and doing a version transition at the same time, and the namespace lifecycle controller observes a set of resources that doesn't include a set of resources that one API server can serve, but there's actually objects of that type in that namespace. It could allow the namespace to be deleted, and then when you undo your version transformation and recreate a namespace with the same name, you have these zombie objects come back. So that's the, and I believe this can happen today. So it's not like a new failure mode, but it is either closely related to the problem the SCEP seeks to solve, or it is the problem the SCEP is trying to solve. So that's why it seems good to me to not let that happen.
I don't know if that was actually the thing that was described in the Slack channel as being the problem.
The Slack channel
discussion was not about orphaned objects.
No, the Slack channel discussion that triggered the conversation last week was that the namespace lifecycle controller went crazy and did a bunch of list requests in this situation.
Right. Which we will avoid, and we will solve that problem.
We'll solve that problem, but making it not do lists while also leaving zombie objects behind that occupy space in etcd and could come back to life in the future, that doesn't seem
right. In some ways,
either.
I think it might make it worse. Like there are cases today that fail safe by the namespace controller saying I'm getting errors, and so I know I can't do things. And if we routed discovery to the destination server and routed requests for APIs we didn't know about to the destination server, then that would allow the namespace controller to succeed and think it had cleaned up namespaces, where today it would hit an error and I guess go crazy or back off, but in any case, not delete the namespace.
Well, eventually,
but you're right,
the upgrade will succeed.
What?
Well, eventually the upgrade will succeed, and you will be in that state anyway.
I can appreciate.
There are cases today that are broken. It would be nice if instead of exchanging one set of breaking cases for another set of breaking cases, we could eliminate the breaking cases. But
no, it's not exchanging breaking cases. This breaking case already exists. And so there's no trade. This is just, I am arguing that it's personally out of scope.
It would be a requested it would be a highly desired immediate follow-up. So
Yeah, like we recognize that we can get inconsistent discovery that is inconsistent with what some servers are serving. And rather than trading one inconsistent discovery for another inconsistent discovery.
So another, I should mention, is in the previous KEP, if we offered a hook for people over version transitions in regards to a specific feature, you could let people, like, if a resource is going away, clear the entire collection before letting the upgrade finish. That would also solve this problem, and more thoroughly, I think.
Upgrade hooks. Yeah, I mean, but that's almost that's basically an orthogonal feature.
I mean, we've got to solve the problem somehow. If we solve it with the other KEP, that, I guess that's fine with me. If we solve it in this KEP, that's also fine. If we solve it in both places, that's overkill, but I'm okay with that, I think.
Yeah, I've definitely wanted a place to put, like, I want to turn off this API before I do or upgrade or stop serving it or whatever. I need to clean stuff up. Like,
Yeah,
if
shut
we
down
did
hooks.
that, then the destination version no longer serving things the older version had would become a non-issue, which seems like a nicer way to handle that.
Yeah,
I agree. I think maybe the feature flag, dynamic feature flag thing is the place to solve it.
all right, so I think what should happen here is I'll leave an unresolved section in the KEP and like write at least a sketch of how it could go either way. And when this is closer to being completed, like maybe next time we meet, the SIG can help make a decision.
I haven't read yet. Is this considered an optional thing? I remember there were concerns before about whether
Yes.
API servers even have visibility to each other.
Yes, it would be optional.
Yeah, the idea is if you have network connectivity between API servers, then you get the proxying. If you don't, then you get 503s or whatever error is safest.
Okay, a 503, and that can be based on something like storage version.
Mm-hmm.
Coupling to storage version means this would not be able to go GA until storage version went GA, correct?
I agree.
Okay. So that chain also goes back to API server identity.
Yes.
Which means that your dependency chain on this KEP is API server identity, storage version, and this. I'm not against it. I just want to make sure we agree on like that's what that means. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, this is why this kind of thing is why I really wanted the API server identity. In fact, both of the KEPs here depend on API server identity.
As a reminder, all the code for that is still semi-broken for anything but aggregated API servers. Or it only works for Kube API server. It's completely wrong for aggregated API servers.
Okay.
Even in master? I thought we fixed it in master.
No, because you told me not to merge it, and then David and everybody else asked me to do a bunch more work. So it's just, I haven't.
Wait, what? I only looked at the backport. I was like, why are we backporting this? But I thought it was fixed ahead.
No. You came over and like, Mo, wouldn't this make this technically slightly worse? I'm like, yes, you were right, Jordan. But yeah.
That does sound like me.
Yes, it does. But yeah, the gist is, no, none of my PRs are still open. They're hanging out because there's like a 10-item long to-do list now that I have to go address to fix them.
Okay, maybe I can help or find somebody to help. Yeah, so I guess it'd be good to get, if possible, like in my dream world, we could agree on at least one of these KEPs for 128. Yeah. So take a read, and I guess we'll talk about them again next week.
Okay.
All right, and that's all for me. Should we? There was at least one item on the backlog. Is Joe here?
Yeah, Joe is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you want to talk?
Yeah.
This was really short, actually. So it happened a while ago, so some people might already be aware of it, but I thought it was interesting to know, and so I was just going to mention it to the SIG. So during the development of the KEP for sidecars by SIG node, there was a topic of how we should structure some types. There's three kinds of container types. There's the normal containers, the main containers. There are the ephemeral containers, and then there's the init containers. And the init containers are going to be used for sidecars. That's not actually really important here, but what was important is that ephemeral containers have their own Go type, and the main containers have their own Go type, but init containers share the same Go type as the main containers. So when the SIG wanted to go to add a new field to just init containers to support sidecars, they also were changing the same Go struct that is used for the main containers. And so there was some discussion, should we introduce a new Go type and split it in half so that now init containers have their own init containers type and its own field? But there was a lot of downstream implications to that, because the Go types aren't just used for the server implementation, they're also used for the clients. And so that would technically be a breaking change because you're switching a type, and that can't be completely hidden from your clients. So the ultimate decision was to continue to use the same type and not break downstream. But I thought it was interesting because it kind of showed that, like, the way that we don't insulate clients from the way that we use our server types is having implications on, our ability to make changes to how we build types on the server side. That's it. I just wanted to tell people that so they were aware of this case. I thought it was interesting.
And one other place I can think of where we had initially similar types and then ended up splitting them was in webhooks, I think. Webhook configurations. We used to have validating and mutating webhook configurations share the same struct type for their lists of webhooks, but then there was something that we wanted to add to mutating. I forget what.
I think it was the call me again.
That's right. Reinvoke if necessary or whatever. That didn't make any sense for validation. And so at that point, we did split the types.
Yeah,
Rather
the thing
than
is,
build and forbidding it in the validating one.
Yeah, the thing is, there's compared to pod container, there's very few users of.
I mean, even the entries that reference webhook configurations, there's basically one admission plugin that looks at that field versus containers, which is like hundreds of references, or lots of users of a utility method, which iterates over all the various types and then calls a visitor. So yeah, it's not exactly the same, but I think if we had been thinking ahead, we would have realized maybe validating and mutating webhooks won't always be identical. Maybe there are things that are in mutating that won't apply to validating, or vice versa. And we would have tweaked that ahead of time.
Mo, I think you had a hand up. Did you want to say something?
I was half thinking of an idea. I don't know if it makes any sense. Could we try to catch ourselves if we do anything crazy here by having, like, just on the server side, some like fancy conversion logic, which like makes sure that when you convert from the outside to the internal representation, it doesn't set fields on container types that we don't expect. So that way, if you add fields to like init containers, even though it's using the same Go type, when it translates internally, there would be checks saying, well, can't set this field for this.
Yeah. So it would be completely possible to make the change in the internal type and not make the change in the external type. But the point of the thing that people wanted to do was make the change in the external type.
Right. I was just trying to come up with something that made it so that at least you would catch bugs or something. Or some oddity of changing the external type by adding a new field that didn't make sense for an init container, but did make sense for container, or vice versa.
Unfortunately, it's like the external types that we publish are the same external types that client Go uses. So like you can't expose that change only to people who want it.
Yeah, ironically, clients, non-Go clients that have to generate themselves from like OpenAPI typically don't have this problem. They're fully insulated from our internal types, and you could split a type and they would just see the OpenAPI change for one part of this API and not the other, and they would be totally fine.
All right. Thanks, Joe. The last item in the agenda is a PR. I don't see Eric on the call list. So why don't we just leave it on the backlog? I and others have left comments on this PR. So I think if we're going to talk about it here, we should wait until Eric shows up. If we didn't answer his questions already.
Sounds good.
So yeah.
Very
Short
good.
meeting.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I will upload the recording later, and I hope you have a good Wednesday, a good week, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Right.